The content presented is for entertainment purposes only. Some content may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. So Valero has been in the the limelight lately as they're accusing California government for basically skyrocketing prices when it comes to processing oil and prices. It affects gas and things like that. And so these price gouging that they're alleging, it's been really interesting to see and kind of dive into this information a little bit more and find out that Valero definitely has some say in this, I believe. All right. So Valero hit back at California's Energy Commission, also known as CEC, last week after the agency demanded oil refinery executive to explain why, despite declining crude oil prices, gas prices have spiked. Crude oil prices are down and industry profits are up, yet gas prices have increased by a record 84 cents per gallon in 10 days in California, a $2.50 difference compared to U.S. prices. CEC Chair David Hochschild wrote in a September 30th letter to executives, "This degree of divergence from national prices hasn't happened before, regardless of planned or unplanned refinery maintenance, and no explanation has been provided. The oil industry owes Californians answers." And I think that's been kind of interesting because what's been really funny about California is that California historically has been one of the leaders when it comes to having one of the most expensive gas prices in the U.S., and of course it continues today. They have some of the highest cost for living expenses, both with purchasing food and goods and services, but also for housing and rent, house purchasing. Good luck trying to find our size house in the same price set that we have right now. More than likely, it'll probably be anywhere between, I would say, 30 and 70% more than what it cost us to purchase this home in southern Utah. And I think that's been kind of the thing that's been going on right now, is that some of these more democratic, left-leaning organizations within these states, they seem to run things kind of hot when it comes to levying increased taxes, levying things when it comes to like carbon and stuff like that. And I get, we definitely want to make sure that we do have good air quality, want to make sure that people are doing the things that they're supposed to be doing, but not at the expense of forwarding that expense to the American people. And that's the thing that's really frustrating, I think, about this particular topic. So I'm going to do my best to keep calm and, of course, chive on. Hochschild even accused the executives of not providing an adequate and transparent explanation for the price hike. He noted that the industry's lower than normal stockpiles of gasoline appear to be a contributing factor to a tightening gasoline market that has increased gasoline prices over the prior week. Hochschild demanded that the industry leaders explain why gas prices have risen despite a sharp downturn in global crude prices, no significant unplanned refinery outages in the state, and no increases in state taxes or fees. How strange is that these things are occurring? And Californians are just left to wonder. So why is it that refineries have been producing lower than normal? How come these gas prices continue to skyrocket even though crude oil right now is down? We're seeing a lot of more downturn when it comes to gas prices as of late, over the past, I would probably say month or two, maybe. I know we're definitely seeing almost $1 decrease out here in southern Utah. So begs the question, why? Why is this happening, especially in places, that are seemingly, run by the Democrats, and exactly why they continue to have these issues where They're just passing the buck, unfortunately, to the American people, and it's not stopping at their doorstep. And we're going to get into a little bit more interesting things as we go on in this article. So he also demanded that refiners explain why they supposedly allowed inventory levels to drop, despite for months, or in some cases years, that planned maintenance would occur. In response, Valero's Vice President, State Governor Affairs, Scott N. Fulwarco, sorry, I hope I said that right, denied any allegations of price conspiracies among oil refineries, pointing to a federal judge having thrown out another case finding no basis for them. That's kind of interesting. So taxpayers' money being well spent, of course, in these left-leaning, ran cities and states. And when they ask for help, they defer to, this is a price conspiracy. And I think that's very interesting that they're using smoke screens to kind of continue to keep people in the dark instead of finding the issues and then being transparent about it. And that's where I have a big issue when it comes to these large companies, especially as big as these oil companies are. And, there's not very many oil companies out there. Of course, there's plenty of different gas stations, but I'm pretty sure not too many people are handing off from crude oil into oil refineries, into gasoline and, oil for cars and stuff like that. And there's not much transparency, which is really interesting. Transparency is really important because it keeps people from doing nefarious things. It keeps people from doing the wrong thing and to continue to focus on doing the things that they're supposed to be doing. And there's a lot of shenanigans going on. And I'm probably going to have to do one of my topics being the pharmaceutical companies at some point over the next couple of weeks, because I just listened to this mind-blowing podcast. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I think his last name is Bueller. He used to be a pharmaceutical rep, and he kind of got to see all sides of it from the training, from the sales reps perspective, from the different doctors and stuff, how he saw that there were people doing nefarious things. Not that there was a ton, but there was some. But then there's a lot of other stuff that's going on in the background that people aren't seeing. And people are making, millions of dollars off of this industry. And what's really sad is that, none of our presidents, even the last two presidencies, we haven't seen a lot of change when it comes to the pharmaceutical companies. Like, they need to be privatized, yes, but there definitely needs to be a culture of driving those prices down, like trying to be the most efficient and the most cost effective so that people can afford the things that they need to help themselves, as well as the pharmaceutical companies need to develop these different technologies and drugs and stuff like that to actually help people, not to try to flip, different things like, the stuff that happened with Oxycontin, the things that are happening right now with fentanyl. Like these things aren't being remedied, and people aren't getting the drugs that they need to really take care of themselves, and they're astronomically expensive. And I'm being in my 40s now, I'm kind of ruining the day that I get to the point where I'm so sick or I'm so old that I have to have these different medications to keep my body going. And they're not fixing the underlying issue. They're just fixing the symptom. And that's the issue that we're having with the pharmaceutical company. But I'm sure there's going to be more on that down the road. But back to our gas and oil stuff. So which nowadays means that the truth of it will be revealed months down the road. And that's kind of been the pattern as of late, is that these things happen. People say, oh, don't need to worry about it. Oh, these are just price conspiracies. Oh, we're very, very sorry. I don't know. It's the COOFs issue, or it's, the Orange Man bad, or it's guy from Mother Russia. It's all his fault. So it's kind of like kicking the can down the road, or however you say that particular thing. But there's a lot of issues, because we always find these things later on. Like, three big examples right now is the usefulness of face coverings. In the beginning, oh no, we don't really need them. And Fauci was like, no, these aren't really going to help. They're not going to do anything. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're mandating these. They're going to help. And they're actually going to, reduce or prevent, the spread of this coof. And it turns out that, well, he was right the first time, origination of the coof, like where did it happen from natural resources or is it man-made? Is that, was there gain of function research or was there not? Of course, they say no, but then we find out later down the road, 2-3 months later, that is the case. It's actually been kind of an interesting pattern that we've been seeing. Like lockdowns are supposed to help, but they didn't. And then we didn't find that out until later on. And it's just, just like that, was that Journey song, and it goes on and on and on and on. Oh, but anyways, I digress. So instead, Valero said market prices was driven by supply and demand, coupled with government-imposed costs and specifications. Valero blamed now inventories on post-coof growing demand and limited supply. He said the higher prices in California than in the rest of the U.S. had to do with the state being the most expensive operative environment in the country and being a very hostile regulatory environment for refining. And that's been really interesting, because, not only are we having the issue where, the buck isn't stopping at the oil industry, it's not falling on the doorstep of the people that are putting all of these constrictions, these extra taxes, these extra different, oh goodness, I can't find the word right now. Different ways that they're going to constrict and reduce the ways that people can do certain things. That way it makes it even more expensive, even take more time to produce these kinds of oils, these gasolines and stuff like that. And basically California is one of the worst when it comes to levying these restrictions on these companies, which just skyrockets everything. And especially when we're in the place right now where we have a Democrat leader as well as a Democrat administration who are definitely on the bandwagon when it comes to climate change. So they're going to continue to put these things on it. And then not only do they get rich because it passes on those things to the government, and then it actually passes on those tax costs onto the American people because those refineries need to increase the cost. And where does the cost end up? It ends up at the gas pumps. And it's really interesting because these are like economic things that we learn in high school, and it seems like the radical left haven't figured out that this is the way things work. If you increase taxes, then people have to pay more money, they have less money to spend, and it affects the consumer economy. Like if we don't have extra money to spend on stuff, we're not going to buy more and new things. And that's just unfortunately the thing of it. And I just wonder when it's going to stop. Valero have made these allegations, and it's seemingly that this is probably something that's actually happening. Now, obviously, we're taking all of this information with a grain of salt. I'm just kind of commenting what my thoughts are on everything. But again, it's really, really funny that the buck never stops at where it needs to stop. Like when the administration says, oh, we need to continue with these more renewable resources. Well, they don't talk about all the costs and the things that go into destroying at end of life and how that's going to affect our environment after the fact. They don't have a very good idea of how long, solar panels, how long these huge lithium batteries inside of cars are going to last. And frankly, if I think of this in terms of laptop usage, like our batteries go dead like 2-3 years out, and it doesn't get the full same charge and gives you the full 2-3 hours you're supposed to get on your laptop. And so at some point you're going to have to replace those batteries or refurbish or whatever the case may be. And there's no talk about, okay, now what about the cost of the environment when we have to destroy these things, and how are we going to store these depleted, like very toxic chemicals? There is no answer, unfortunately. I think they're still trying to figure that out. So as Valero's letter was made public Friday, California Governor Gavin Newsom said he will call a special session of the Senate legislature in December to pass a new oil tax on oil company profits to punish them for what he called rank price gouging. It's unclear how the tax Newsom is proposing would work. Newsom said he is still working out the details with legislative leaders, but on Friday he said he wants the money to be returned to taxpayers, possibly by using money from the tax to pay for more rebates. Way to go, Newsom. Way to take more money out of taxpayers' pockets by saying that he's not going to take money out of taxpayers' pockets. I think that's hilarious. So increasing taxes on gas, or the production of gas, or the refining of crude oil, or production costs and like maintenance, it's only going to increase the cost of gas, punishing the adjustment onto the American people. I believe this is being done purposefully to push average Americans into purchasing electric vehicles, furthering this climate change agenda by the radical left. And this part is really scary for me, because we're seeing that with inflation. It's, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but the prices of milk, eggs, especially steak and chicken and sausage, especially things like grains and grains like bread and stuff like that. Everything is skyrocketed. But what's really been interesting is that vegetables, surprisingly, have stayed low. Now, if I may put on my little, if you guys are watching, I'm putting on my little aluminum foil cap on right now. Now, if I'm thinking conspiratorially, and I mean, this is just what we do, because nowadays it seems like conspiracies end up being the truth, 2 or 3 months down the road. But in my opinion, I really think that this is not only the whole climate change agenda thing, but this is also the move people off of, meats and breads agenda into vegetarian or veganism, because, killing animals is bad. Well, unfortunately, the science says per cube square, or whatever it's called, like per serving, versus like potatoes or broccoli or whatever, like per serving, you're going to get more nutrition, more minerals, more vitamins. This is, as far as I understand, scientifically sound, where you're going to get more from the animal meats. And this is due to the downturn of vegetables receiving less and less nutrients, because we are doing these large agriculture things. Now, don't get me wrong, vegetables are still good for you. You still need to eat them. However, you still need to have some meats and stuff like that to continue to give you the nutrients and the vitamins that you need from those animals and vegetables. And you need a combination of everything. Obviously, now, okay, let me take my conspiracy hat off. That's just what I think is going on with that. I mean, that's just what I'm seeing. Again, I could be wrong. I just don't feel like vegetables are going up as much as meats. But I digress. So what's really interesting about Valero calling out the oil industry, I really do feel like there needs to be more companies calling out these big conglomerates, calling out these legislators, these people who are running these different states and counties, and be like, hey, you guys are doing a bad job. Look how much burden we're putting on the average American person, which, makes up between, 95 and 98% of this world that we live in, this nation that we live in. Excuse me, I meant nation. And so what's going to be really interesting to see down the road is to see all these different, like, radical left-leaning, agenda-driven ideologues that are continue to push their beliefs through legislation, through laws, through states, and how it's just destroying. Like California, as a whole is really, really struggling. And it's just really, really sad to see. And I really hope that these people change their ways and they continue to push forward. They get the right people on the bus and they start making the changes that they need to get more money into the taxpayers' pockets through, bettering their lives, increasing their education, furthering their knowledge through different schools where they can learn different trades with these trade schools. I think that would be a better, use of money than sending billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine. But I digress. So it has always fascinated me as price changes from state to state, even from county to county, even cities. I've been able to find places. This is 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago when I was working in Texas. I was able to find places. It was just over $2.15 to $2.29, and then I'd go to another smaller area and it's $1.99 a gallon. It was really interesting to see how these things changes from state to state, and it's always fascinated me. Again, why does the buck not stop at the feet where it needs to be? It needs to be at these administrations. It needs to be at the local government level. It needs to be at the governor's feet. And it's really funny. It's just it's not my problem. It's not my fault. It's just the coof, or it's these guys over in that area of the country's fault. It's that price hike. And so I wonder why they continue to fluctuate and differ from one place to another, possibly due to classism. The way that everything's set up. I mean, it could be, I don't know. But, and why do these big companies not have more transparency? I mean, obviously we know why. I mean, they want to make more money and they do want to do it at the expense of anybody they possibly can. So they continue to look good for their stockholders. And that's something that's very scary, especially it's happening in the big pharma companies because they're trying to continue to push their profits over helping people and doing the right thing. And unfortunately, the way that, with Obamacare and the way the insurance companies are set up, the way that pharmaceuticals are set up, drugs, it's all set up to make those that are producing it and selling it and administering it the most profit they possibly can. And it's still happening today. I can't wait to talk about that. So if there's no transparency, because if they did have transparency, they will be held accountable, and it'd be possible they would make less money, or worse, they could be out of business because they are doing nefarious things and it's affecting other people. And what's going to happen is when things get to the point where they're so expensive, and we're not getting the raises that we need, we're not, getting different employment, we're getting to the point where people are just not going to be spending money and we're not going to be consuming and our economy is going to crash. And that's not going to be good either. So furthering the spike in gas prices is the current administration, as well as our current president not renewing oil permits, not reopening pipelines from other parts of the country, as well as they stopped offshore drilling. I think I worded that pretty poorly and I apologize. The truth is that America would be completely independent on oil, but due to the push of the climate change agenda on the far left, they will continue to push average Americans out of their choices. It'll get to the point, if they continue on this reckless road, it's going to be to the point where we have to buy electric cars because they're going to be cheaper. We don't have to worry about, paying for gas. And I'm sorry, but some of these electric cars are really, really pricey. Just saying. So what's important is laying accountability at the feet that is supposed to be intended for. Americans should be able to spend their money and choose how they conduct their lives, not the government. It's really important that there is competition. Try to make cheaper, better, longer lasting. We talked about planned obsolescence and all that stuff in our previous podcasts. It's really important that we do make good cars. Nobody wants to buy Chevy, GMC, all these American Ford. We don't want to buy these cars because they're not made very well. And it's sad. Like the government needs to be reduced and spending slashed. Like there should be transparency on all sides from all companies. And I think that's really, really important, because then we can find the bad eggs and we can get rid of them, or at least, make sure that there's policies in place that make them play the game correctly. Now, battling obesity and telling bullies to kiss it. This is another interesting topic we got to talk to about today. So this is talking about obesity and wellness, and this is CNN. So again, we take these with a grain of salt. We just talk about our thoughts and feelings about them. So this is talking about the kid that they followed around and took pictures and talked about her life. She would go outside for more to avoid the stress at school, but she found no respite. Kids would kick footballs at her. She said that when pretend they didn't do it on purpose. Someone once threw a golf ball at my leg, and I'd never forget it, said Walton, now 26. It literally looked like the golf ball was still on my leg because it was a white mark and then a massive red bruise around it. So I got bullied in high school. And because I was tall. Like I wasn't as big as I was right now, but I was the tallest kid in class. I was called numerous names. I had food thrown at me. I had drinks thrown at me. I had professed gangster kids, like kids who thought they were, all badass and, oh yeah, we're gangsters. They would chase me around the playground saying that they were going to kill me and my family. The school, the teachers, the other kids did nothing. So I had to deal with this crap at school when I was growing up in grade school. Now, what's really interesting is that once you get through grade school, it seemed that high school got a lot better. And then once I graduated high school, it got even better. And so, unfortunately, these are kind of the growing pains that you go through as children. Unfortunately, I don't think there's really a real great way to stop bullying, because kids are going to point out their differences. And I think a lot of that is because they're being taught that when they're growing up by their parents or what they see in film and children's shows. And this is something that we definitely need to change. Like, we don't need to point out our differences and go, oh, well, this person's different because they're tall. Oh, this person's different because they're fat. Oh, this person's different because they have different melanin in their skin. That stuff shouldn't matter. Like, kids should be going to school to obviously enjoy it, but to learn and to grow and to cultivate relationships, to learn how to navigate between the sexes, how to navigate. As far as talking to boys and talking to girls, it's all a jumbled mess. And it's what sucks is that these different things are going on where we're trying to not we, but we as in, the far left are trying to confuse kids even more by adding skin color, by adding more sexuality, by adding, different pronouns, by adding all these different things that kids do not need nowadays. They really don't. They just need to focus on getting through their classes. When they turn around 16, they need to start going to different internships. They need to start looking at different schools so they can look at doing different trades, because I'm sorry, not everybody's going to be a very popular influencer on Instagram. You're not going to be a YouTube, or a live streamer. Like, those are the very, very few, unfortunately. And it's hard to go through when you're young because you think you can get all these things and do very, very little work to get a lot of reward. And the world, unfortunately, just doesn't work like that. Like, we need people to cook hamburgers. And I think those are really great jobs for kids between 16 and 18 years old, or even doing that to help them get through their college and stuff like that. And that's, where I feel very, very strongly that the minimum wage should reflect, a single student working full time and going to school full time so that they can cover all the things they need to cover to go to school. And it really bugs me when I look at that minimum wage and it's like $7.25 an hour. And unfortunately, that's not going to get you very far. in life when you're starting out. And that also causes depression and anxiety because you don't have enough of what you need to cover your food, your room and board, the roof over your head. I mean, hopefully you get scholarships, and hopefully, you younger kids are working really, really hard to get what you can, because you're not going to be able to make it working full time, even working overtime at McDonald's, flipping burgers at $12, $14 an hour. I'm sorry, the money's just not going to be there for you to pay for your car, to pay for your books, to pay for your tuition, to pay for your classes, and to live off of that. I mean, having a cell phone, having internet, having a computer, things that you need. I digress. It was a difficult time for Walton, who in primary school had been diagnosed with a condition called premature adrenotry. I probably mispronounced that. That her body started developing much earlier than her peers. Later in life, she found out that she had polycystic ovary syndrome, which affects the body's ability to use insulin and often leads to overweight. So nowhere in this article, unfortunately, did Shannon Walton seek medical attention for her condition, or her many attempts to get, more fit. And I'm a bad example. Like, I'm 6'3", I'm hovering around 325 pounds. Like, I'm overweight, considered obese at this point. And it's because of my bad eating habits. It's because of going out to eat. It's because of technically it's overeating, because you could literally eat McDonald's every day, and if you eat less enough of it, like, you would still lose some weight. I mean, for most people that have normal bodies and appetites, but anyways, and not eating enough vegetables. Like, you do need to eat vegetables to get those kinds of, minerals and those vitamins, but also you need those lesser calories in order to put your body in a state of burning the stuff and then having left over to use, the fat that's within your belly and other places. And what's really weird and odd is not ever once did any of my doctors go, it'd probably be a really good idea if you increase your vegetable intake. When you're eating prep meals, you probably should prepare more meals for your lunches, and should probably eat light, on your breakfast, or skip breakfast completely. Make sure to eat good, fresh, foods, eat out less, eat less, and do more exercise. Not once did any of my damn doctors tell me to eat less, eat better, and get out and exercise. Not once. And I think that's something that should probably be prescribed like you would a pill. Instead, get out and walk. That's something that's important. Now, I'm not trying to shame this person, because everybody has their struggles. Like, I get it. I really, really do. I'm mostly speaking for myself. And I think that's why I wanted to go over some of the points that I wanted to talk about from this article. And I quote, "I've always been overweight from a very, very young age," said Walton, who lives in Sheffield, England. She remembers her weight being linked with her age as she grew up. "When I was 14, I was 14 stone, 196 pounds. She said, when I was 15, I was 15 stone, 210 pounds. It tended to go up like that, and it didn't make sense to her. I've never been an overeater. I've never been a binge eater. I've never really been a secret eater," Walton said. "My mom's always cooked really fresh food. We've never been a family that's had takeaways all the time for fast food. So my weight over the years, there's been a bit like I don't understand why I'm putting weight on." And with the polycystic ovary syndrome, like, I probably just messed that whole thing up. Polycystic ovary syndrome, like, there's definitely some things that are going on with that, which you do add weight, and it doesn't matter how much you diet, how much you exercise. Like, there's something to say for that. Like, and there's definitely some specific things that you can do. That's definitely something you need to talk to your doctor about, talk to a dietitian. Definitely get some help with that. Like, there's definitely things that you can do. And so to say that, before she was diagnosed with this, that, she just continued to gain weight, well, usually it's because of a sedentary, I think I said that right, sedentary life where you're not doing much. And you are going out to eat, obviously. But I kind of feel like this is like, well, I'm a career victim. And I know I say that a lot about some people because I kind of feel like we go, oh, well, I have ADD, ADHD, and I'm depressed, and, I'm clinically depressed, and, I can't get out of bed, and blah, blah, blah. Well, there are some people that get to the point where they are so depressed that they are paralyzed in life. And I get it. And I hope those individuals reach out to somebody, talk to a doctor, and get the help that they need. I really do. Because, I get it. I have been in the situation where it did feel like that. It felt like the world was closing in. Everybody was against me. It felt like I could do nothing right. I was in and out of jobs. I couldn't hold anything down. And I just struggled, and I get to the point where I was depressed for days, and depressed for weeks. I just would not show up for work for 3 days because I was so depressed and I couldn't get out of bed because it felt like the world was nothing. And then I got to the point where I realized that those things were only weighing me down because I chose to allow those things to weigh me down. And I started getting out of bed more. I stopped doing as much of these stupid things that I need to stop doing. And when I'm doing these things where I'm taking care of myself, I'm getting when I had the medical care that I needed to get me over that hump, and I've gotten to the point where now I'm on daily vitamins. I'm taking of supplements. I'm taking my Alpha Brain, which definitely helps, get me out of those depressive states very, very quickly. I'm only in those states now, maybe hours, maybe 24 hours, and I'm out of it and I'm back running again. Sometimes I need to take a day. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I take a day. Sometimes I don't do my podcast because I'm at that point where I know if I continue on it, the path that I'm at, and I jump onto my podcast, it's not going to turn out very well. And if I feel like it's not going to do that, I'm going to skip a day. And I do that on purpose so that when I do show up, I show up the best that I possibly can. Obviously, I'm not perfect. I try my best to do my best. I'm not perfect, but you know what? I'd sure as hell give it my all, and I sure as hell try. And so I think it's really important to not slip into that victim mentality. You need to slip into that victor mentality. I can do this. I can get over this. I can get through this day. I can get through this 20 minutes that I'm feeling like my chest is tight and I feel like I can't breathe. Right now I'm kind of feeling more of that physical because I wasn't feeling good on Sunday, and I think I overdid it when I was puking my guts out early Sunday morning. This is also, I'm not going to get into details, but anyways, I was relieving myself, for quite a while, for a couple of hours in that morning. Because of that, I do have some tightness, but I think I probably herniated, or I stretched over my muscles as far as my lungs are concerned. And so I actually went out for a walk today. Walked my dog, and feel pretty damn good, actually. So it's important not to be a career victim. You can't, because if you're gonna, now don't get me wrong, there's some people out there that make a great living being career victims, but it's like, how are they going to feel down the road as they get older and they get to the point where just people are like, yeah, but you could go out and you could be doing something right now, or you could be going out and you could get the medical care that you need. And I get medical care is expensive and it sucks. And, there's definitely needs to be some pretty intense changes when it comes to the pharmaceutical industry, the whole medical industry. It just seems like they want to keep you, half sick and half dead, but not dead because they need to keep making money. Anyway, I digress. So over the years, so growing up, I could eat at McDonald's and people would go, oh, she did eat at McDonald's. Interesting. Because it just said before that you wouldn't go out for takeaways or fast food, but now it's like growing up, I could eat at McDonald's. Anyways, I could eat at McDonald's and people would go, "Oh, you shouldn't be eating that. You're too fat." But then you'd eat a salad and you'd get laughs. I'm not going to say that word because it's too close to another word. Because you've eaten a salad and you're overweight, she recalled. I got to a point where I thought, I can't win, so I'll just do whatever I want to do. The issue completely took over my teenage years. Taylor Smith said, being overweight was like I wasn't good enough. I wasn't a good enough human being, and that's how I felt. So this project has been to sort of a challenge that look at it. Why did I feel like that? How do you move on from that? I feel like that. There must be a whole heap of other people who feel like that. Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of people that feel that way. But you know what? We go through it, we get out of it, and we move on. Like, you can't sit and wallow in that because you're not going to go out. You're not going to work towards a career. You're not going to go to school. You're not going to go try to better your life and get more experience so you can get a better job. You're not going to go to these trade schools and try to, increase your income that way. You're not going to attempt to be a live streamer or influencer because you're just sad and depressed. But I get it. Like, I was in that state at some point as well. So over the years, I think I messed up one of these things. Smith has been photographed by many British teenagers who have struggled with obesity, bullying, and self-confidence. Walton was the first subject, and her Fearless inspired a photo book, Kiss It, and they hope to publish soon if they can get the last bit of funding. Of course. Boo. I'm depressed and sad and fat and obese. Please give me money. Sorry, that kind of upsets me. They hope to publish soon if they can get the last bit of funding they needed through the Kickstarter crowdfunding platform. The name of the book comes from a tattoo that Walton got on her backside, a message to the bullies who taunted her for so long, which is to kiss it. So the constant begging for money from these professed victims is nauseating, and it really is. I really struggle with the fact that these people are just like, "Oh, I'm sad, give me money." Like, I don't want to be that kind of person. Like, I really want to really work hard at producing the best content that I possibly can and give it to everybody in a way that allows the viewer to be engaged and to be interested. I don't want to produce a bunch of content that just basically goes, "I'm sad, give me money." Like, that's rewarding victimism. That's rewarding bad behavior. And I'm sorry to say that, but I'm saying this myself. It's time to get out there and kick ass. I believe that making healthy choices, whether it's food or whatever it is in your life, starts when you feel good about yourself. Yes and no. Like, you need to be taking care of yourself regardless of how you feel, because if your body feels good, your brain feels good, your heart feels good. Plain and simple. Taylor Smith said, and when you're overweight and you're being told you're fat and you're lazy and you're greedy and there's a massive stigma around it, there's not a place where any of us are going to make healthy decisions from, I believe. Well, that's your belief. That's not the reality. That's not the reality. Like, I'm fat because of speaking for myself, I'm fat because of my bad decisions. And I'm working to do better at that. And it's a slow process, unfortunately. And when you fall backwards, you got to get back on the horse and you got to keep on riding. When you fall off again, you got to get back on the horse and you got to keep on riding. When you fall off the horse, you got to get back on the horse and you got to keep on freaking riding. I almost said it. You got to. This project is not about saying that it's okay to be obese. I disagree. It kind of feels like you're saying it's okay to be obese. I'm sad and depressed. Please give me money. That's how I feel about it. I'm not saying that's healthy. The good. Being obese is not healthy. Very, very true. Are there medical conditions where people are going to struggle with that? Yes. Get the care that you need. Period. I'm saying that there's a difference. There's a balance between body positivity and health, and I think we need to find the balance. I have an issue with this whole push for body positivity. Now, I understand that yes, you need to feel good in your skin. You need to feel happy of where you're at right now. But if you're in a place, especially where I am, like I'm very happy with myself, but I'm not happy with how healthy my body is. I feel like I can have a body that's much, much more healthy. And I think if my body is healthy, it'll make my brain healthy, and in turn will make my heart healthy. And that's what I believe. Yes, balance for sure, but don't wallow in self-pity. What I don't understand, I just said that, so I'll move on. I'm a quite happy, bubbly, chatty person. Normally you can't shut me up. I do find that people think because you are overweight, you are miserable, but that's not always the case. You're right. It's not always the case, but it is the general rule. Fat people seem to be not as happy because when your body's not happy, your brain's not happy, and your heart's not happy. Like it all is in conjunction. Hashtag not all, but in general, over people, not always technically very happy. I'm not happy all the time because of my body. Now, am I getting better? Am I making better decisions? Am I moving in the right direction? Yes, very slowly. And I hope to get to the point where I can see myself under 300 pounds. Like that's kind of my goal right now. If I could see myself under 300 pounds, that would be a wonderful thing because a lot of that weight will be off of my joints. A lot of that belly area will be, fade away. I'll actually be able to fit into clothes that I can reasonably buy at normal retailers. I don't have to go to Big and Tall. Like there's a lot of things that are super helpful once you get to the point where you're more healthy. Like it seems like everything comes down to your health. Wow. I'm just coming up with this realization now. Like it all comes down to your health. If you're a healthy person, your brain will be better. If you're a healthy person, your heart will be meaning your emotions will be better. Huh. That's interesting. So reading later in the article, it talks about how she has lost some weight and has a personal trainer. Awesome. Great on you, Walton. Good job. And honestly, she's actually a cute girl. She's not ugly. She's just a little overweight. She's actually a cute girl. And some boys like the thicker girls. I think if she continues on her journey with her trainer, better eating habits, weekly exercise, she should be feeling better, not only physically, but also mentally. And that's definitely true. It seems that, or at least the mental doctors, psychologists I have been a part of taking part in to better my mental and physical health is that when you're when you're exercising 3 to 5 times a week, at least going on walks, at least going 30 minutes to an hour on a walk. And if not more, doing some light jogging or even doing some weightlifting is also really good. I mean, there's definitely something to say for all the things that, Mr. Rogan has said about weightlifting, and that's actually super duper helpful. And my wife and I are actually about to get to purchase these really cool weights where you can have there's like a little dial on it and you can kind of turn and kind of decide what weights you want. And it's all like contained in like one thing. And then once you get the right weights that you want, you lift it up, and then the heavier weights are left behind, and the other weights, you take with you, and you can have free weights, which is kind of cool. Can't wait to get those in addition to our treadmill. It's going to be fun. So overall, obesity is over 40% in America. Like I've seen like 43%. I've seen like 53% at the highest, but at least 40% of Americans are obese, and it's only been increasing. Especially since the coof, that's skyrocketed, especially in children, unfortunately. And what are we doing to fix that issue in our lives? Like, why are we championing obesity as a society? Like, why are we saying, this big bodies are beautiful, but we're not saying they're not that healthy. That's what I don't really understand. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. And this is coming from somebody who knows, have been diagnosed and been told that they are overweight and technically obese. And I know that my body isn't healthy. I know that my body isn't as beautiful as it was, 10 years ago 8 years ago when I got married. I was under 300 pounds 8 years ago. And then the question is, what will it lead to if we continue down this road? I think it's important to work on ourselves. I think it's important to work on our physical health, our mental health, and our emotional health. And I think it's really important that we get out of this victim mentality and get into victor mentality and like be like, we can do it. We can take care of ourselves. We can get out and go and exercise. We can do these things. I think it's really important. Now for our last, we're definitely running out of time here. I might, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I definitely want to get to one part of this, but this is part where this is Black women and non-binary surfers are rarely in the spotlight, and this photographer changes that. Let's dive in. That's the title of Agati? Sure. That's the title of Agnati's Jones's new book of photography, I Just Wanna Surf. Available now for pre-order. Of course, it just started out saying, please buy this. Centered on Black women and non-binary surfers, its pages are filled who ride its waves with locations ranging from California to Costa Rica. But it's also a personal heirloom chronicling Jones's own journey in surfing and depression. Again, we're all victims. The project, after all, becoming a homecoming for Jones, she left in New York for California for a month, connecting with a group called Black Girls Surf. Armed with cheap disposable cameras, she started snapping photos of other Black women and non-binary folks in the water. At the time, she didn't know where it was all going. She was just having fun. Because I guess it's just fun to take pictures of certain races and certain sexualities. Okay. And I find it interesting that this photographer artist states that they just want to surf, but is also promoting their differences from everyone else, as well as their skin color and their sexual orientation and women. Then they ask for others to purchase their project, which perpetuates the division and sexual confusion. So, no thanks. The photos in the book reflect that feeling, surrounded by water and sand. The joy of the surfers and their community is tangible. It's palpable. Just kidding. That's not what it says. Their grins beckon the reader closer. Their body language calls on its jump on it too. Jones's work is reminiscent of surfing photography from the 1950s, which is actually kind of cool. Fuzzy photos from people hanging out on the beach and in the water, surfboards in tow, and it's a direct contrast to what many picture when envisioning more commercialized surf media, showing people riding 8 to 9 foot waves and making cutbacks. So I did photography. I did media productions back in high school and as well. And as I did a bit of amateur skateboarding footage as well, which is really fun with like a fisheye lens and stuff. The content shown in this article has a lot of blurry wave photos with only a few that were noteworthy of young Americans surfing. And honestly, if we were living in the day and age where it shouldn't matter like who is surfing, like I feel like the title should be changed. I feel like it should be American Teenagers Go Surfing. I think that would be a more appropriate headline, instead of like, focusing on the differences of people, but I digress. But surfing and surf culture aren't always about chill beach vibes. I just scrolled up by accident. There can also be an intense culture of surf localism. The territorial idea that waves exist only for the locals of the area. It's a mindset that can turn aggressive towards surfers deemed outsiders. Last year, for example, 2 Black surfers said they were called racist and homophobic slurs by an older white surfer while at Manhattan Beach, in an incident that quickly went viral through the local surfing community. Citation, please. Proof, please. Now, not to say that didn't happen. Obviously, we're going to take this with a grain of salt. These are, again, we're just commenting on these wonderful articles here. However, I find it quite interesting that these individuals cry victim without evidence. The only citation is another article of another surfer culture of Black men with the caption, "Ending Racism in LA Surfer Culture." If there is evidence of racism, let's fight it together. I think that's a true statement. Like, if we can find the culture, if we can find the individual, if we can find the organization, if we can find the evidence that points to blatant racism, and we can see it, in black and white, so to speak, then let's fight that. Let's go arm in arm. Let's get together. Let's get organized. Let's stop that. I agree. I agree. It's not a common sight in the book, Jones reveals. She didn't meet another black surfer until January 2019. What? You did not see one black surfer while you were surfing until January 2019? How old? I mean, are you a child? Like, I don't understand. One photo in particular stands out. Jones captured Kimiko Russell Halterman during 2021, Black Sand Beach Paddle. A paddle out at Manhattan Beach meant to raise awareness and create space for black surfers following the incident of racial harassment. Again, no citations, no proof. Just somebody said bad things to me. It doesn't mean that it is who you are. Why are we giving credence to that? Anyways, I digress. Now, what was really interesting about that statement is I did a quick Google search, which allowed me to find 6 noteworthy black surfers throughout history, which broke barriers starting in the late 1940s. Nick Baldwin, Montgomery Buttons, Kalua Kalani, Mary Mills, female black, Andrea Kawasa, Rick Blocker, Michael February, to name a few. And I think it's safe to say that there have been many black surfers that are not of note. We just don't know them, but it's really interesting, this article's case, that they conveniently left out that there are other black surfers, but they're just like saying, oh, we can't find them. How very convenient. Like, I'm sure if I could go to the beach right now in full swing with everybody that's surfing, I bet you anything we'll find plenty of black Americans enjoying those waves. Okay, so there's an image I want to show you. Let me show you an image, as I want to comment on it, and I kind of want to get an idea of what you all think about it, because I feel like that's not the one I was looking for. This is the image right here. Was it F11, I believe, blows it up? There we go. Let's switch cameras. Okay. So this is the image in question here. So let me go ahead and minimize that really quick. So there are quieter moments too. Moments spent waxing a board alone or rubbing white sheen sunscreen into dark skin. Of course, we got to continue to share our differences and show we're different. We all bleed red. And we're all part of the red, white, and blue. We're all Americans. In one image, a young black girl is seen in her swimsuit in the foreground. So I'm guessing this girl here in this blurry image here, walking ahead of a group of young white girls holding their surfboards. Okay, so there's like 4 white girls behind her, right? Holding their surfboards. Though both are walking in the same direction, seemingly for the same thing, there's a separation between the two. So now, again, I don't know what this person was alleging here. I don't know if they're trying to, push our thoughts and beliefs in this photo. Go, oh, look at this segregation here. I don't know. I really don't know. But what's really interesting is when you look at this image here, take a look behind this young teenager right here. Who are these legs right here? Those legs look pretty dark. Is this another young female teenager going out to the waves? Here's her surfboard right here. She probably isn't 2 or 3 feet, behind her. And what about these girls over here? Look at this group right here. So it seems like a pretty good mix of groups that are going out to the waves. In this particular photo, there happens to be more black teenagers than white teenagers. So what were you trying to portray here, Miss Jones? Were you trying to say that this is segregation, or is this some kind of, inherent racism, or is this some kind of something that's going on where we subconsciously think we need to separate ourselves? I like to think of myself as a reasonable person. This is what I think is going on. Whether this person is alone or maybe there was somebody else in front of her, I don't know. But this looks like a quartet of group of friends. And it looks like this might be a trio, or maybe another lone ranger over here. Or maybe these are all girls are all friends. But to make the assumption that this is some kind of separation because of skin color and it's somehow inherently racist. Now, again, I'm reaching. I agree. I understand I'm reaching a little bit here. But if this is what this person is alluding to, I would say shame on you. This does not look like racism here. This just looks like a picture of young teenagers that are going to the beach. But again, I digress. So the Black Surfer story is not defined by racism and conflict, but by love and friendship. That's actually beautiful. That was actually a really beautiful line. Good writing. We are not the bad things that happen to us. We are the joy and the community we chose instead. I completely agree with the statement. That's a beautiful statement. Why couldn't we focus on, teenagers go surfing? American teenagers go surfing. Nope. We got to talk about the black women and non-binary people in order to continue to separate and in order to divide. And honestly, when it all comes down to it, is it really about these things, or is it about power? I don't know. Seems like it's a lot about power. The sad part is, as I was looking at the top stories this weekend, these are the ones that stuck out to me. And I had great results checking the wording of the headlines and look it up on TubeBuddy and stuff like that. I'm trying new things to try to figure stuff out. Will we ever see the day where we no longer have articles like this to view ourselves through the lens of melanin, through the lens of sex, through the lens of your genitalia between your legs? Why do we have to worry about these things? We know that there is inherent differences, biologically, naturally, belief in God, whatever you call it, there are differences between peoples. There's differences between men and women. There's differences between culture, but we can celebrate those things instead of choosing those things to divide us. We should see ourselves as Americans. We should say American before color. We should say Americans before creed. We should say Americans before sex. And what upsets me the most is that this could have been a heartwarming exhibition of a new wave of new teen surfers that are coming up, and they're going to be the next best surfers. And instead, it was tainted. Instead, this whole thing was tainted by the racial left narrative of we are all different and we're all anybody who isn't of color is racist. And it really upsets me. Now, don't get me wrong. Some of those parts I may have been overreaching. And some of those parts I may have been misled in the wording and the things that were pointed out in these different articles. But what's really important about all of these things is, number one, we need to think about America first. When it comes to taxes, what's the burden going to look like on the American people? That's why conservatives are so exhaustive in trying to cut back as much taxes as they can for everybody. And yeah, sometimes it does give tax breaks for rich people. Sometimes it does give tax breaks for median income. Sometimes it does give tax breaks for those that are poor. But we need to think American first. When it comes to gas, when it comes to obesity, why aren't we doing things that are more preventative rather than just treating the symptom? I feel depressed. Here's a pill that's going to make you mildly happy. I'm fat. Here's a pill to lose the weight. Like it's giving into the victim mentality, and that's not okay. Now, I got the chance to live in black rural America, out east and down south. I lived in Louisiana. I lived in Georgia. Like I lived in South and North Carolina. Like I lived in a lot of these places. And you know what I found? Beautiful, wonderful, heartwarming, hardworking. Like it was so interesting. Like, you know, Black Americans painting inside and outside of homes, building homes, renovating, like technicians. It was such a wonderful experience, and being told that they're trying so hard to get out of this mentality and to be good people. And I think that's really, really important. And from my family to yours, good night. Today's video is sponsored by viewers like you, so thank you. If we earned your subscription today, don't forget to hit that red subscribe button, click that damn bell, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss a content release. The best way to support the channel is to like this video, share it with family and friends, and don't forget to leave a comment down below. Send all of your topic ideas, articles, and video links to theperiodicreview@gmail.com. All of our links are in the description down below.